From a distance, the List family of Westfield, New Jersey, looked like the perfect American household. Their home, a grand, 19-room Victorian mansion called Breeze Knoll, stood proudly at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, surrounded by manicured lawns and stately oaks. Behind its tall windows lived a family bound by strict discipline, cold silence, and a father obsessed with perfection. John Emile List, the man of the house, was a mild-mannered accountant, polite, soft-spoken, and devoutly religious. To neighbors, he was the model of respectability. He wore pressed suits, carried himself with precision, and never missed a Sunday service at the Lutheran church. But inside his mind, something was quietly unraveling. John's wife, Helen, once vibrant and sociable, had grown withdrawn and dependent. Their 3 children, Patricia, 16, John Jr., 15, and Frederick, 13, attended local schools, polite but distant, living under the shadow of a man who demanded excellence and obedience. And in the upstairs apartment lived John's elderly mother, Alma, a woman of firm faith and quiet authority, the only person John seemed to truly respect. But beneath that perfect family portrait, cracks were spreading. John had lost his job, again. His finances were collapsing, and his pride couldn't bear it. He spent his days pretending to go to work, sitting in the train station, hiding his failure behind a mask of calm. He prayed for answers, but the silence of heaven only deepened the noise inside his head. And then, slowly, methodically, he began to plan. For months, John List's double life unfolded in secret. He rose early, dressed in his gray suit, kissed his wife goodbye, and stepped out as if heading for the office. But his destination was never the bank, nor any office building. He would sit in the pews of local churches or at the edge of parks, lost in thought, clutching his briefcase like a relic of the man he once pretended to be. Bills piled up. Mortgage payments fell behind. The family's grand house, his symbol of success, became a monument to his failure. But the one thing that tormented John more than money was morality. He saw his family slipping away from God, his daughter experimenting with acting, his sons growing worldly, his wife no longer the devout woman he had married. In his mind, they were descending into spiritual decay. And John, the self-appointed guardian of righteousness, believed he had been chosen to save them, even if it meant through death. He withdrew money from his mother's account, canceled milk and newspaper deliveries, and wrote letters to the children's schools explaining that the family was moving away to North Carolina to care for a sick relative. Every detail was covered. Every lie constructed to buy him time. He planned not just to kill his family, but to erase them completely from the world's concern. He told himself it was mercy. He told himself it was love. But underneath it all, it was pride, the desperate need to remain in control of his perfect image, no matter the cost. It was a cold morning on November 9, 1971, when John List decided to act. The sky hung gray over Westfield as he descended the staircase, carrying his 9mm pistol and .22 revolver. His face was calm, as if heading to church. In the kitchen, Helen sat sipping her morning coffee. She barely looked up as he entered. Without a word, John raised the pistol and fired once into the side of her head. The cup shattered on the table. Her body slumped forward in silence. No struggle. No scream. Just the stillness that John had long craved. Then he climbed the creaking stairs to the 3rd floor. His mother, Alma, was seated at her small dining table, reading the morning paper. "What was that noise?" she asked as he stepped into the room. John looked at her, the woman who raised him, the one who taught him right from wrong, and pulled the trigger once more. A single bullet above her left eye. She fell instantly. He left her there, too heavy to move, her teacup still half full beside her. Downstairs, he dragged Helen's body to the ballroom, laying her on a sleeping bag beneath the massive stained glass skylight. He cleaned the floor meticulously, washing away every trace of blood, every sign of chaos. Then, he waited. When Patricia and Frederick returned from school, he met them one by one, each child confused to see their father home early, each unaware of what awaited them. He shot both of them quickly, with what he later called mercy. And finally, hours later, his eldest son, John Jr., came home from soccer practice. This time, it wasn't clean. The boy fought. He struggled, cried out, and John fired again and again, until the room fell silent. He later said he wasn't sure which bullet had been fatal, but he wanted to be certain that his soul would go to heaven. One by one, he placed his family's bodies side by side in the ballroom, covered them with cloth, and whispered a prayer. Then he turned on the lights, played soft organ music on the intercom, and left the house forever. Days turned into weeks, and Breeze Knoll sat in eerie quiet. The mansion's windows remained dark, mail piled up, and the faint sound of organ music lingered behind its locked doors. Neighbors grew suspicious, but the letters John had sent explaining their family emergency seemed to justify the silence, for a while. Inside, the air turned cold. The food rotted in the fridge. The family's remains lay in the ballroom, untouched, preserved in the chill of early winter. It wasn't until nearly a month later, on December 7, 1971, that police finally entered the house. What they found was a scene frozen in time. The ballroom lights still glowed. Religious music still played faintly from the speakers. On the floor, 5 bodies, lined up, covered carefully with blankets, lay beneath a massive stained glass skylight depicting Jesus. And on the table, detectives discovered a 5-page confession letter addressed to John's pastor. In calm, meticulous handwriting, he explained everything: his financial failure, his fear of moral decay, and his belief that killing his family would save their souls from damnation. He wrote that he couldn't bear to see them suffer poverty or lose their faith. To him, this was redemption. But the man himself was gone. The investigation was massive, one of the largest manhunts in New Jersey history. But John List had vanished without a trace. He'd turned off every light, cancelled every clue, and disappeared into anonymity. For 18 years, no one saw or heard from him. In reality, John had started a new life. He drove his car to the airport parking lot, left it there to mislead police, and boarded a train to Denver, Colorado. There, he changed his name to Robert Peter Clark, resurrecting the identity of a college classmate. With forged papers and a calm demeanor, he rebuilt himself from the ground up. Under his new name, he found work as an accountant, remarried, and began attending church again, sitting quietly in the pews, just as before. To everyone around him, he was polite, intelligent, and deeply religious. No one suspected that behind his wire-rimmed glasses and calm smile lay the mind of a mass murderer. But time has a way of uncovering what even the most careful man tries to bury. In 1989, the TV show America's Most Wanted featured his case, the story of the devout family man who'd killed his wife, children, and mother, then vanished. To aid the search, forensic artist Frank Bender created an age-progressed clay bust of what John List might look like after nearly 2 decades on the run. The detail was chilling, the same rigid jawline, glasses, and slight frown. When the episode aired, one of his neighbors in Denver stared at the screen and froze. The resemblance was uncanny. She called the police immediately. 11 days after the broadcast, FBI agents knocked on the door of a modest home in Richmond, Virginia, where Robert Clark now lived with his second wife. They asked for identification. Calm as ever, he denied everything, but fingerprints don't lie. Within days, John Emil List was under arrest. At trial, he showed no emotion. He spoke quietly, explaining his actions as if reading a balance sheet: logical, controlled, righteous. He said he feared his family was straying from their faith, that they would suffer spiritual and financial ruin. In his words, killing them was the only way to ensure their place in heaven. But to the world, it was murder, cold, premeditated, and merciless. The jury took less than 2 hours to convict him of 5 counts of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to 5 consecutive life terms, ensuring he would never walk free again. In interviews, he maintained that he acted out of love, not hatred, and that if given the chance, he would do the same thing again. Breeze Knoll was later destroyed by fire, its walls reduced to ashes. Some said it was arson, others believed it was divine retribution. But even as the house burned, the story of the List murders continued to haunt America, a portrait of faith twisted into fanaticism, of control disguised as care. In 2008, at the age of 82, John List died in prison, quietly, as he had lived. He left behind no apology, no remorse, only a legacy of horror, calculation, and a haunting reminder of how far one man will go to maintain the illusion of perfection. To this day, the List murders remain one of the most disturbing family annihilations in American history, not for the brutality of the act, but for its cold precision. John List didn't kill in anger. He killed with conviction, calculation, and calm belief that he was doing what was right. He arranged their bodies beneath the image of Christ, as if offering them to God. He prayed over their corpses, cleaned the house, and vanished without a trace. And for nearly 20 years, he lived among others as if nothing had happened, a living ghost in plain sight. In the end, it wasn't guilt that found him. It wasn't justice that hunted him down. It was art, a clay bust, molded from imagination, that finally brought his mask to pieces. And in that, perhaps, lies the cruelest irony of all, that a man who sought to escape the eyes of the world was ultimately captured by the face he could never change. If you want more chilling crime stories, make sure to like, comment and subscribe to Dark True Crime channel.